It's nice to see so many people interested in this subject. My name is Taru Nygard, and I am cello teacher, and I'm just about to graduate from Helsinki University to become a special education teacher also. And I have to just finish my master's thesis there. Just a second. Yeah. No. Which I'm writing now on Sistema context also. And I started working in Sistema program or Tempo Orchestra, as we call it here in Finland, in Vantaa. I guess it was 2012. And Vantaa is located in Helsinki capital area, so you can more locate it easier here. When I started working there, I was just finishing my bachelor education in music pedagogy and had just started to special education training program in Helsinki University. And I remember the time when I was just thinking of ways to connect these two sectors and of education when I heard about Tempo Orchestra in Vantaa, and they just happened to need a cello teacher there then. And I just immediately felt that this was just a way and just a field where I want to work in music education. And I then did not yet have much experience of working as a teacher overall, but was kind of just eager to jump in. And while working in Tempo Vantaa, I realized how much these fields of special education and music education encounter here in this Sistema environment. And of course, this job just took my heart then. And so a few years later, when we moved from Helsinki to about 600 kilometers up north to Oulu, where I'm originally from, I started organizing a Tempo program here in Oulu too. So now in Oulu, we have 4 Tempo orchestras in 2 schools, and I work here as a Tempo teacher and coordinator and doing the managing of the program here also. And I'm also teaching cello in different music schools around Oulu area. So I do also this kind of traditional instrument teaching besides. And by the way, I think we are now in Oulu, we have at least one of the most northmost Sistema programs, maybe in the world, at least in Europe. There's one more north in Boden in Sweden. I went to visit and meet the Swedish program there once. I hope we can cooperate with them too later. And as I said, I'm now writing my master's thesis in special education. And in my thesis, I'm examining Tempo teachers' experiences in teaching in this kind of Sistema-inspired program here in Finland, and especially in the aspect of the children's special needs, special educational needs, and what this job requires on that matter. So later on, I was thinking, for this research also, I would so much like to hear your experience, Sistema teachers' experiences also around Europe on this matter, because I just cannot miss the opportunity to take advantage of this great international network that we have here on hand. But more of this on the end of session. And unfortunately, I don't yet have this questionnaire ready, but I was thinking that maybe later I could send you it by email so that you can reply if you want to participate, to share your experiences. But just to make clear again, I'm not yet an expert on this subject, but consider still a student. But I think this subject is so important in our working environment as Sistema teachers that I just wanted to put on this session and open the discussion on this matter. So, when do we need special education or special support? This is my first participating in SEYO, and I've been very inspired and just overwhelmed of all the great speakers and panels concerning such a large and important issues like inclusion and social development and equality and interaction, and also the great workshops that give us tools for teachers for our work, like yesterday's excellent presentation from Francis. Thank you about keeping the attention in classrooms, and also Skesa's presentation on color strings, which I think also is really helpful for teaching in teaching music in special educational context also. These issues are essential in El Sistema, but at the these very same issues are also very fundamental issues in the field of special education also. And in my speech, I want to kind of lead us back to the rehearsal rooms and to the very roots of the action, and where we meet the children and young people as Sistema teachers, and think about also what kind of pedagogical and educational challenges we may confront there in the field. We are doing our mission. As El Sistema started in Venezuela, in slums and in our maestro approach Caras, what I've understood, the needs of the children were quite different from the needs of the children today. And I don't mean that by that the challenges of those days have vanished. Unfortunately not. There are still people and children living in slums and similar kind of situation, but still, as the program has spread around the world, it has also met the different kinds of needs of children in different nations, contexts and communities to reach the aim of social and developmental growth of children and the communities. And as a system has spread around the world, I think that the strength of the program has been its ability to be modified to meet every community's own needs to achieve the goal of the action and the social growth. What I've understood, and as it is in Finland also, in many countries, at least in Europe, the program is very closely connected to schools and school communities. So from garages, we have moved to school halls and classrooms where the rehearsals are many times held in afternoon, after school programs, or even included in school days and held during the school days. And for our time, this is really smart, because one of the main features of the program is to take to music to reach the children where they live and where they spend their time, and to go to their communities to meet the people. And from there, from the schools, we will find the kids, and the schools are many times also the places where we can, in a best way, offer the most equal opportunity for all children to take part in musical activity, since there they aren't, for example, dependent on their parents' support on getting to rehearsals or practicing and so on. And of course, there are also many highly important programs still and located in other communities, and like refugee camps and other places where the need of music and social projects is. But still, the strength of the program is that it goes where the need is, and it modifies to the community's needs. At least that's what I've thought, that it's really important and an essential part of this program. So what I've understood is that the school context and the cooperation with schools is nowadays very wide dimension of a Sistema program. And in this light, it is also relevant to speak about the issues that concerns the schools also. And one highly relevant issue is on how we can best support the children's individual needs and offer the kids equal opportunities to learn based on their own needs. And this means that in some cases, one child will need some extra support or special support on their learning and action also. So this is basically what special needs education is all about. This picture is, by the way, from our concert in a school gymnastic hall. So what are special educational needs? First, have to talk about something about the definitions of special needs, but because every nations have a bit different categories for diagnosis and levels of supports, and what do we mean about special needs education? have to define something about what we mean when we speak about children with special needs. I won't go any more details with this because this would be something that we would need to discuss with whole new series about with presentations, and this is not so relevant here, and it is not so interesting either. But here, just to get some definitions, these are the definitions of OECD, which could be seen as cross-national classifications. At least they have tried to try to get these kind of classifications, cross-national classifications. So except from those excellent programs like White Hand Square that El Sistema is linked to the El Sistema program, I think what what mostly concerns us as El Sistema teachers when we teach in school context. From here, the categories B and C, because these are the ones that usually are, these are the difficulties and problems that we face with children who are usually in this kind of normal schools and classrooms, but they may have some difficulties and disorders that require some extra support. And it's also important to notice that even though we speak about disorders, many of these disorders may not be visible. Like learning difficulties, behavioral and emotional disorders have strong biological background, but you can't see it from the first or second or even the 50th time you meet the child. But usually these require months or even years of observation and investigation. And on the other hand, in many occasions, the child may act in a way that might make us suspect of an emotional disorder or something behind there. But the actions are derived from maybe a very stressful home situation, maybe abuse, some grief, or some other impact of the environment. Not to mention situations like, for example, refugees face when they have when they have left their homeland, maybe in war situations, and the child or the parents may be suffering situations like post-traumatic stress disorders. And also the situations are many times very complex, and it may be difficult to categorize, but that what is the cause. But the good news here is that it doesn't even matter for us, because the main thing is in the last line here, which outlined the support these children should be given to their education, no matter what is the reason for that. And I want to highlight that also, at least in the context of Finland, where the support given in schools to the children is required to be given to the students depending on their own needs, not depending on their diagnosis or some medical definitions. So the need is the most important. So in the school context, as we usually speak about special needs in the school context of education and schools, but the difficulties the child may have obviously follow the child everywhere she or he goes and reflects on his or her everyday life and social contacts too all the time. So as we are working with these children and providing them musical education, the need of support reflects to us as teachers also. And if it is also our responsibility, if I may cautiously say, to provide them the support they need to their best education in music too. And so how common is the need of special support? This is the statistic example from Finland, where over 20% of all students were given some sort of special educational support in their learning. In Finland, there is this three-tiered system of educational support. So this 21.6% contains intensified support, which is mainly part-time support given in basic classrooms by special education teacher or classroom teacher, and special support, which is even more intensified and can be given also in separate special education classes or special education schools. So even though these statistics shows the situation in Finland, we can make some assumptions on the effect of special educational needs generally because kids are quite the same anywhere. I'm sorry I was a bit lazy on this and I didn't find any cross-national statistics on this, but we can make some assumption from this, and this shows the intensity of the need of support in Finland. I'm sure it won't go far from this national wide either. So every fifth child at school in Finland is in need of some sort of special educational support. And it is also stated that children from disadvantaged backgrounds have higher risk or have higher state on the need of special educational support, whatever reason for. Unfortunately, I don't have the reference to link here either. Sorry about that, but there are studies where this has been discovered, and I can get those to you later if you're interested. And why it is like this, there are many reasons, of course, and probably, and many reasons, and no clear reasons for this either. Probably most obvious may be the lack of capital concerning material and economics and health issues, which obviously lead to many effects. If you don't have food, the effects that affects on your development gives you stress, affects your family life. You have less time to study and play, and when you have to, and you may need to work to get food or watch your siblings for so that your parents can work and so on. And so the effects are really complex and not clear, but many times they are also connected somehow. And also many of the learning and behavioral disorders have biological and many times heritable backgrounds. And without appropriate support, this may have cumulative effects on persons' everyday life that may lead in worst cases to social exclusion. And it is also stated that the risk of marginalization is higher to pass over generation. So we as Sistema teachers, when we work with children who many times come from very special backgrounds, and as we try to involve the program children who have a need for extra social support, we also face many children with extra need for special educational support. This is something that I don't know if we yet have any statistics in a Sistema context, but if an average there is about over 20% of students who need extra support at schools, my wild guess is that in El Sistema projects, the number of children who are getting some educational support at schools or are in need of this, it's much higher. At least that's something that I'm maybe from my observation in Finland context. So we kind of collect the kids with the need of extra social support, but besides the social support, we face the need of pedagogical support also. And this is something that I'm now interested also in my thesis, that how aware are El Sistema teachers who most likely and most frequently are from with backgrounds of music education and instrumental pedagogy. So how aware are we of the children's needs of pedagogical support, and what are the teachers' own perceptions of on their capability to providing this? What is difficult for us as El Sistema teachers and instrument teacher is that we usually don't have access to the information what, for example, the school has on students' special needs. Sometimes the needs are obvious if, for example, is visible or clearly distinguishable. But as I said earlier, many times these difficulties and disorders need months of or even years of observation to be discovered. And at least in Finland, it is strictly regulated that with who can you talk about the child's matter. So this privacy matter is really important and concerns us too. For example, the teachers are not allowed to speak on the child's matter with anyone without the parents' permission. So many times we as tempo teachers and Sistema teacher, we may have some assumptions about the child's difficulties based on their act, but we don't have any fact information. But again, if we try to look at this from the positive side, the good thing is that we don't necessarily need the information because the support is given to the child based on her or his needs. And some and extra support, which can be just a simple thing as attention, some extra attention or extra time, or an adult standing beside and helping, is something that everyone can give to a child based on our own assumptions and our own consideration. And I most definitely do not mean that every Sistema teacher should start playing as special education teacher or in educational matter, even though I have many times said that I think where every instrument teacher is a special education teacher, because we have such a precious one-by-one time with our students, and we most definitely teach our students individually and based on their needs. And as we as Sistema teachers are also most definitely also kinds of special educators, but still the support is it is something, the support on its basics is something that each teacher can give. And I'm sure that you all as Sistema teacher also give it, even though you wouldn't be aware of that yourself. And here would be some questions for the audience. Have you ever felt these kind of doubts or questions? And you can chat or you can just nod or show your empathy. Confusion, is there a special need behind this child's action, or uncertainty about this, or doubt on how should I teach this or support this particular child, and how this other child? And because at least these are these kind of questions that I many times face during my, and I have faced and face still during my teaching career. I could actually say that I feel now that I'm in this kind of situation that I should know about these things, but when the real life situations appear in the rehearsal rooms and the kids are acting crazily wild and and in this kind of many situations, challenging and fun and everything in between, and you just feel that I don't know what to do with this situation, and I don't know what are the tools, and do I have the competence, and do I have the tools being a teacher in this kind of situation? Have you ever felt this kind of confusion?
Okay, I'll join the discussion because you asked the question. I guess every teacher meets these situations once in a while. And not in all the programs, it's also possible to teach the children one by one ever. So it might be even more permanent, this sort of contact. And also there are these situations, like what I like to think often is the worst possible case. And if we can find an answer to that situation, then as teachers we feel more at ease how to proceed in the situations. And so what is it? We enter to a classroom that is full of kids with no attention, and this is something the teachers should prepare themselves also, because it's just so likely to happen to anyone. And these are the tools why this point and this discussion is so important is that the knowledge and understanding about the special needs and diagnosis, because special needs means actually diagnosis of some sorts, help us to understand and to meet. Although we have our methods, and like Francis so well explained about attention yesterday, and we've got all these tools, but even so, the fact to understand what might be the diagnosis behind might help us also to loosen up our attitude in front of the students.
Thank you, Verna. You lead this conversation really well, because this is exactly what I was heading now. In that in these situations, it really helps if you know something about these special needs like learning and behavioral and emotional disorders. So what is behind those disorders and how they appear? And this helps you also to understand the child better, and it helps you to think of the ways to support the child. And by supporting one child, you can also help and support the whole group at the same time. And well, here, this is something that I would have liked to deal with these more precise, but unfortunately, of course, we have a limited time. So this is kind of really tight collection of some problems that might be some problems and some disorders that might be behind the child's need of special education. And this is something that maybe if you face a child that may be challenging, you may face that it's challenging, maybe he's acting or she's acting in a challenging way, or you notice that the child won't just learn or act in the same way, or that his or her peers. But these are the kind of main difficulties that cause the most of the needs of special educational support and support in learning and in the school context. And when the child has some difficulties or disorders, these very same difficulties and disorders are also present when the child is in the orchestra rehearsals or in the interaction with peers there and playing an instrument and reading notes and trying to listen to instructions on rehearsals and so on. And they just may appear in a different way while studying and reading, like when studying and reading maths or anything, any school subjects at school. Like just a few words about these, like emotional and behavioral disorders, they usually lead back to emotional problems in emotional regulation and self-regulation, and that may cause some kind of challenging behavior because the child just won't have the capability to kind of control her behavior or his behavior. And then there's of course ADHD and ADD. ADD is the attentional problem without the hyperactivity. So it's problems in keeping and also like focusing and directing your attention. And this are many times connected to executive functioning. This kind of the kids may not have that kind of strong, this kind of inner voice that says that do this now and do that now and go there. Or if the voice is there, his or her attention may be that kind of there may be some problems in attention that when the voice says something, then the next thing comes to their mind and then it's forgotten. And then there's of course learning disorders, difficulties, which may appear in difficulties in reading and writing. The letters and notes may jump and may twist and may get fixed or twist. And this, of course, may appear in when reading notes too. And these are kind of complex too when if there is problems in reading notes and you get frustrated with that in rehearsals, that may lead to that your attention goes to somewhere else, and these cumulative effects many times. But many times there's something actually quite simple behind those. And there's linguistic difficulties also, which may cause you difficulties in understanding speech, for example, and also forming speech. Difficulties in perception may be seen as maybe coordinating problems when you're dealing with your instrument, and autism spectrum disorder, which is like huge spectrum, very large spectrum, but the main features are many times difficulties in interaction and reciprocal effect. So you have hard times like interpreting what the other person is speaking, or you can take this take kind of literally what the conversation and what is said. And then there's many times getting this kind of stuck in some habits or things, manners, how doing things, and maybe some high interest on something particular. And then there's of course these more visible and more kind of clear impairments, mobility impairments and sense impairments. And this is also notable that, for example, hear impairments may be in one particular level of hearing. So it may not be kind of as visible, but it may cause you difficulties to understand, speak, or hear something. And of course, intellectual retardation also, and those connected to that. But this kind of really tied some what are the most difficulties and disorders that we may face at school and maybe in the Sistema environment also. So what can we do then as Sistema teachers? When we work with these children, we don't have to do any magic, but the best way is just to listen to the child. And I mean also this by observing and this kind of intuitive listening, but also, just kind of ask, how are you? And listen. Really important. And probably you will hear kind of answers like, okay, fine, but that's fine. When you ask, you make the child know it and give him or her a chance to get listened. But maybe you will get some longer answers later. And I know this is really hard in our everyday life, and at least I feel like kind of constant bad feeling and guilty about how I manage to pay attention and be present for the kids individually, but we do our best, and that's good enough if we try and are aware of this. And this is something why it is also very important that we have enough teachers and assistants in our rehearsals, because then we have enough adults for kids to be in contact with. And it is also very important, if you think the child has some problems in learning, you can ask the child questions like, would this help you? Would this be better? Or doing this, or you can just ask him and to try this, and ask later, now, how did it feel for you? Did this thing help? Or how did you feel with this? Maybe some implement or doing things like that. Kids are full of information, just ask. And kids also want to learn, and usually they also want to act well and in appropriate way. And it's also important to know this, that as you can give support on the child's learning, you can also give support on the child's acting and behavior. You can teach the child on how to act in appropriate way and support the child to learn this. If the child acts an inappropriate way, support him or her by telling how to act instead. But the problem, put the problem on words and put the action on words, and help the child also to notice him or herself the ways that he or she is acting. And as you know, the learning in general requires repetitive times to go, and for some children, even more repetitive times and several times to go on and to learn. But this is the support that they might need, and still with supportive and positive way in supportive environment, everyone will learn. And this is also important. Be aware of your own emotions when confronting challenging situation and just play it calm. And even though it might be hard, emotions reflect and are transmitted. So you can be the transmitter of a calm emotion and show example of how we will together get over this challenging situation. And remember that the children usually, they want to learn, they want to act in a good way, but they just might need some help with that. But you can support them and you can do it and learn it together. The last phrase here is heard many times in different contexts, especially in respect of to positive psychology and positive education. What you focus on will grow, and it goes so well in this important, and it's so important to our context here also, and music environment. So make it noted and notice that the child and to the child and to the group will also take notice of the good succeeding in learning behavior and so on. These experiences of succeeding and feeling this, yes, I can do this, I can overcome this situation and I can do better, reinforces the child's sense of agency and confidence and competence. And it is highly important, especially for those children coming from disadvantaged backgrounds or with learning or behavioral difficulties, because many times they hear so much negative feedback and negative kind of guidance, and their study may be so focused on their difficulties, and they do struggle with those difficulties so much, even though they would be getting support on that. But make it noticed, all the positive and good stuff. And in music, we can offer the children a different kind of contest to boost their strengths. And this is something that at least it's the best positive feedback for me, at least in our context and orchestra rehearsals, that we hear from the schools also and from the teachers, of course anonymously because of the child matter, but privacy matters. But the school teachers have been so amazed to see their students concentrating in our concerts and stretching their abilities to concentrate and focus, and it's this kind of different context to get your strengths visible. Some quick tips for teachers. And the good thing about special education is that these kind of tips, they, even though they are kind of meant to those special kids with some needs, but at the same time they help everyone. One is of course this clear and repetitive task, this kind of structure of the lesson that is predictable for children. They know what happens. This is highly important for if children with attentional problems or problems with executive functioning or even behavioral problems. It's kind of predictability. You know what happens, and it helps you to calm and get on. And it's also really important to have this kind of access for mobility, in the between the rehearsals, and so variability during the lessons and rehearsals. And I think in our form, if I think of this in orchestra rehearsals, we have different pieces that we learn, but maybe if we would have more this kind of breaks, that between the pieces just stand up and do something, maybe some conducting and or something else, and something to move, something that gives the children ability to move. Clear, short instructions. Avoid too much talk, because if there's children with attentional problems, they just won't. Their attention is in the first word, and then the rest is. So avoid too much talk, but act and do instead, and the children will follow. And this is something that maybe would be something to consider also, this kind of safe place, maybe in the rehearsal classrooms. It's not a place to get penalty, but it's this kind of place if there's too much, because if there's children with special needs who get overwhelmed with all the senses, all the attention, and their senses get kind of overwhelmed. It might be just good to have just kind of place that you can go there and rest and get calmed, and it would be open to anyone to go there on their own needs. And then there's also this kind of implements, and like maybe some balancing sensation pillows, or to maybe put sit on or put under your feet. Maybe weight pillows are many times used in special educational context, maybe could be used in orchestra rehearsals. This kind of features to have something on your hand, but of course that requires that we have to put our instruments down to have those access to hands doing something else. But all this kind of colored papers and notes might help many children to focus on reading and reading. Collaboration with parents and the school teacher is, if possible, would be excellent way to support the children, but this of course has to make notice of the child's privacy matters. The parents are the best observers of a child, so if possible, make contact with the parents. And it's also very, very important to also give the positive feedback to the parents and teachers on the children's act in our environment, because parents of special educational needs children are many times just overwhelmed with this negative feedback from what they get from different kinds of situations. So when we can say that, hey, this child just played so well and concentrated so well, and we had a great experience on concert, it's really important to get that kind of feedback also. Did I go before? Yeah.
Thank you, Taru. I had just two things I wanted to comment on. Was the first thing with the safe place. I suppose it needs to be still a place where there's an adult, or the child is visible for adults.
Maybe in some place that you can, if there's enough room in the rehearsal classroom somewhere, it would be the best. But also it would need to be something that would be calm, maybe. And
yes, so it needs to be. It depends on the space where it can be, and also with a child safety. Let's say, I don't know if it's regulation or something like this. Then yes, the adult shouldn't be alone with the child in the space. So I don't know. This is another discussion. The second thing I wanted to say, pardon me? Headphones, yes. Headphones is very good. Is about the cooperation with families and the teachers with a child with special needs, or whatever child. In most cases that I've met, the parents and the teacher and the child, they are willing for the cooperation, and they are very open and very happy to find solutions in whatsoever to ease up the child's path if it's particularly difficult, but for any child. And just in rare cases, the parents won't say anything or don't know anything, and the teacher doesn't say anything. It's just quite exceptional. And then the teacher, it's good that the teacher has got some knowledge or some sensitiveness about what might be going on. But in most cases, everyone is relieved when there is a possibility of communicating about the child's strengths and challenges. But as we have still just few minutes, I would be so happy if I saw Lea is here. Lea, is it possible for you to say a word or two? Because I'm sure you have something. Is she still here? Oh no, she left already. Okay, then we don't have her opinion about this, but yeah, so these were just the things I wanted to mention. Is there somebody else who would have some ideas or some comments or questions?
Actually, I have a little comment. It's really wonderful how this session is in a certain way complementary to Francis' session we listened yesterday. And I wanted to ask you, Taru, if in your opinion, there are maybe some brain gym exercise specific for special need kids. I have just this curiosity.
I don't know if there's any specific brain gym for special needs, kids for special needs. I'm sure the same kind of brain gym exercises will be helpful for all. And there are many different kinds of brain gym exercises also. So you can just select those that work for different individuals. Because special needs is also education as a it's just so individual. Supports are so individual, and there are no some magic tricks that would fit for everyone, but everything is like trying and working with this individual child and what works for him or her.
I saw Andreas had his hand up.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. This was very impressive. And I just want to add, as you mentioned, refugee children, and we work with refugee children. It doesn't matter where the trauma is or what kind of trauma the children have. Children are children. And we realized that when we started bringing in, as we started in Berlin children with not refugee background, they had been kind of different traumatized without being acknowledged as traumatized. So you never know. And I only wanted to mention that there is also a point that sometimes the parents get over demanding what your project should deliver to the children. So you should also be aware that parents are not always only grateful, but they become very demanding and are sometimes part of the problem the child has. And so it's important to focus on that as well, and also to have this professional distance sometimes for your organization. And we, for example, we had also children who just wanted to come and sleep. And they were sleeping in the middle of the orchestra. They were just laying down in the middle of it, suddenly sleeping for an hour. But what they did, they were sleeping in the music. And so, of course, there were a lot of unexpected things, but that's what it is. And sometimes I have the feeling it's better to think about how would a cat or a dog would react to the child than a high professional, high educated psychologist.
Yes.
So I think the privilege we have is we don't need, of course, we can have all the knowledge, but we should forget about it and just focusing on music, because working in the professional music field, we know about a lot of high profile artists who would be considered people with special needs. So it's really important that we focus on the music, and at the end, no talking is a very good start.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that's good. And have to remember that we don't have to, even though we would like to solve all the words and children's problems, we don't need to do that. We can just focus on the music and give time and give space to that, and that helps. And I'm also kind of many times that I've thought that it's kind of privilege also, that or not privilege, but it can be seen as a positive way that we don't know the disorders and difficulties behind those children, what they are maybe struggling with at school, because we face them in the rehearsals all in the same line. It may help you. This is the thing that I was probably what I was trying to say in the first hand. It may help you, and it will help you to understand the child better if you know something about these difficulties and disorders, what may be behind in the act of a certain child. But still, the children, when they come to us, they are in the same line, and we support and we educate them on their needs. It's based on our observations.
There's also one thing I would like to add, is also worth giving space for the curiosity of the children when they get a music instrument in their hand, because they do something with it you would never expect. And I always learn a lot when we improvise or when we just let it go. It's not that we need a fifth of Beethoven at the end of the day. It's what we need is joy. Yes. And when we focus on the joy and bring it together, this is what we actually need to have. And the curiosity of the children is what we need, because we all kind of, far away from that.
Yeah.
Yes,
children
we need to have
the best teachers.
Yes, and we need to have the children coming back, and when they come back, all the rest will settle. I was so happy to have you here. Thank you, Taru, so much. Thank you, Andreas, so much for your. It would be a discussion to continue for hours, and I hope we will be able to do this for our next, not online but real gathering. But I think it's a time for us to say
until later.
Yes. So.
Thank you. And just one last thing, if it's okay for you, I will send you, Sistema teachers, some questionnaire to answer by Google Forms to get your excellent and precious experiences for my thesis also, and to examine this.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.